less sugar for a cocktail. You can also have a very sugary shrub for a cocktail, which is like will be your sugar ingredient in a cocktail, which is what ours is. We're not adding any more sugar to this cocktail. People started making shrubs to preserve fruit. You can take what's fresh or what's not so fresh and preserve it for months on end. The traditional way was to soak the fruit in vinegar, discard the fruit, cook it down into more of a syrup, and then you can use that for a beverage. A lot of punches in England were made with shrubs, alcoholic punches, rum, gins. They use that a lot as just an added boost, bit of vinegar flavor. So in saying that, the old traditional way of making a shrub was to cook it down. You would discard the fruit, you would cook everything down, and you would have a more concentrated syrup. There's benefits to that. The benefit to that is shelf life. You can become shelf stable in doing that. It's pasteurized. The vinegar's been mellowed, so it doesn't have quite as much of a bite. There's a bit of a downfall. At Juice and Jelena, we make all of our shrubs with apple cider vinegar. And there's a lot of health benefits to that we try to keep involved in the drink. It's only 2 ounces that we're adding to these shrub drinks, but it's still apple cider vinegar. You have the mother, you have enzymes, you have proteins that are coming from this apple cider vinegar. So
per cocktail, how many ounces of vinegar?
I'm getting about 1.5 ounces. So a lot of dietary suggestions of consuming apple cider vinegar daily is about 2 ounces a day. I actually have a personal story. I went to New Zealand and Australia for 3 weeks, and I didn't have any apple cider vinegar for the 3 weeks, and I definitely felt the effect. I was like, I'm just not right. I don't think it's good.
Do you always use apple cider vinegar?
You don't have to, no. You can use balsamic, you can use white, you can use a lot. I just like the added health benefits of apple cider vinegar, and it's a bit more mellow, and it's not quite as expensive as nicer balsamics.
Unrefined?
We do not use unrefined. I make them unrefined at home, but the problem with that is you have the mother culture still there, which is a lot of the health benefits for them. We don't have a liquor license, so there's a bit of a problem with serving something that could be alcoholic. So we don't. We use Sparrow Lane, which has been pasteurized. But that is the only pasteurization in the process that we use. So the cooked ones, you're going to miss out. By cooking the fruit, to make a cooked shrub, you're going to add the vinegar, you're going to add some of the sugar, you're going to add the fruit, you're going to cook that down, you're going to mellow the vinegar, and probably steep it for about 20 minutes. There'll be a bit of a reduction, which will intensify the flavor. The problem with that is you're also cooking fresh fruit, and you're kind of missing out on like the true flavor of what it is, especially from farmers market, which we use. I try to capture all of that. So in my raw shrub, what I tend to do is this right here is vinegar with blood orange zest and a couple rinds. I leave the rind in there because I want some of that bitterness from the pit. It's more round flavor. When I'm making something like a berry, I macerate the fruit for like 3 or 4 days. So that's very lightly sprinkled with sugar, a little bit of lemon, a little bit of salt, and then it's let to sit and kind of just pull all the juices out. Traditionally, people would throw out the fruit at the end of that, but I incorporate that into my shrub because I like that added flavor and body that you get.
Even using some of the rinds as well.
So now when I take berries, strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, whatever have you, I put it through a food mill first, and that squeezes out all the juice, takes out some of the seeds. After that, I put it through a very fine sieve and pass it through that again. That is going to give you a syrup with all the body and as much of the fruit as you can get, instead of throwing it away. At that point, I'll take my vinegar, which sometimes is infused with herbs or berries or something else to give it like a bit added herbal note. Then I incorporate that back together. Always tasting, always trying. There's no real recipe, I feel, for a shrub. I think it's a lot of trial and error, a lot of what you prefer, sweet to sour, to savory, to how much fruit content you want in that vinegar. Then I balance that with raw agave. Some people use sugar, some people use honey. We prefer to use raw agave as well. at that point, it's finished. You can use 2 ounces in a cocktail, you can use 1 ounce in a cocktail. It's up to experimentation. And that's what I love about being able to do this with my job, is I get to experiment a lot and try new things and make delicious cocktails like what you're about to have. The cons of raw shrub is shelf life. It is going to stay, but it has to be refrigerated. It's not shelf stable. And I mean, that's a con, but it's not that big a one. I mean, nowadays refrigeration is everywhere. And traditionally shrubs were made because there was no refrigeration. It was a way to keep a hold of like the fruit and what you were making. So my recipe is the one that you're gonna have today is 1 liter of apple cider vinegar, 2 pints of blackberries, 1.5 cups of agave, and there's a 1/4 cup of organic sugar. So it's not just agave. There is sugar in case anyone does not have sugar. It was set to macerate for 4 days, the blackberries, then put through the food mill, put through the fine sieve, and then
Food mill exactly is that blend?
yeah. It's a big metal contraption that has like an arm that comes around. You can use like a stick blender. You can use.
Yeah, the potato,
Yeah, that's a food mill.
Yeah.
You can mash it up. Basically, all you're trying to do is smash it down as much as you possibly can.
You have a fine screen mesh strainer, just like using that in a wooden spoon.
Push it through.
Could lay 2 layers of cheesecloth too.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways. I mean, you can use a blender. You can blend it and then strain it through a fine strainer. I just like to capture as much of the fruit as I possibly can. I think it adds more to it. So after I put the blackberries through the food mill, I incorporate my 1 liter of vinegar. I let that sit for probably like a half hour, and then I taste. That's when I add my sweetness to balance. I want to make sure. Hey, can I get one? Yeah, you got a cocktail? Oh, that's great. So, like I said, the other added benefits to a raw shrub with apple cider vinegar, all the enzymes and proteins in mother culture are still intact in it. It's never been heated. It's never been pasteurized. Health benefits that go along with apple cider vinegar. It's good for your hair. It's good for your skin. They think it kills cancer cells. It's great for digestion. Acetic acid is the main acid in apple cider vinegar and most vinegars. It's a really good aperitif or digestive. I like to tell people have a shrub before your meal and help break down food and gets everything going. A lot of people think the vinegar gives them an energy boost and a lot of things that aren't supported by science, but people have done their own studies. Like I said, my own personal thing was gone for 3 weeks. It's just not feeling as well as I should have been. So I now drink apple cider vinegar every day. It also lowers your blood sugar as well. So there's added health benefits there.
Does that have any questions about how you execute this at home?
Yeah. Well, some people are making videos. Can I get the ingredients one more time?
Yes.
Okay.
Ingredients
It is
for this.
2 pints of blackberries, roughly 400 grams.
Okay.
A liter of apple cider vinegar. We use Sparrow Lane, which is pasteurized because we have to. We're a restaurant. And a cup and a half of agave. And when I say a cup and a half of agave, I tend to make mine sour and tart. I don't want my shrubs to taste like a soda. I want you to know you're consuming it.
Right.
But I've tried other ones where it's like, oh, it's a beautiful strawberry soda. It's actually shrub. So I make sure people know they're drinking a shrub when I make that. I think that's kind of the point. And then, so it's macerated for 3 days. Put through whatever process you can to process down the fruit. And then strained out. out, so it's a nice syrup. It's not seedy. There's not a lot of stuff in there. I made a cloudy apple.
So is this
stone.
non-alcoholic?
No, it is alcohol.
No, gin and
Oh,
Campari.
gin. Oh, okay.
Gin, Campari, lemon zest, soda
Oh,
water,
okay.
and shrub.
Well, so a mango, you probably macerate the fruit a little bit. Probably not quite as long. Like with the blood orange. So this is, I use the zest and the rind. I steep it in the vinegar. Then I reincorporate 3 days later all of the raw blood orange juice. So it's fresh squeezed. Because I'm at a restaurant, I can do this and we can serve that orange juice that day. But then 3 days later, when I need more orange juice, I can just squeeze it and I have it readily available. So if you're making a citrus shrub, you probably don't want to discard all that juice, so you want to drink it. But letting orange juice sit for 3 days to then reincorporate in the vinegar, it kind of loses a bit of that flavor.
Right.
You could start fermenting. So I made a cloudy apple stone fruit shrub. Tons of extra apples. Making shrubs is a great way to use fruit that's not at its peak or a little bit past its peak. I tend to let my fruit over-ripen just a little bit, gain all that sweetness.
It's also a good way to hold on to the end of like the seasons as they pass, you know. So like your stone fruit as it starts to fizzle out towards midsummer, maybe the last time you go to the market, you know it's going to be the last time. Grab a bunch of it, make a shrub, you know, and then you got a little plum action for the rest of the year. You know,
Yeah, so right now, Max brings us all sorts of amazing things from the farmer's market, and occasionally the kitchen doesn't get to it. And they're like, hey, I have a case of nectarines, I have a case of plums. Can you do something with it? So I just shrub them. And it's a lot of experimentation. I've gone away from the cooking of it to keeping it raw. We go through a lot of the shrub, so it's not really going bad. It's
a good slogan. There's that, you can pickle that.
This is why I brought it. You have a question, yes?
Yeah, sorry, where is this restaurant?
So we're Juice and Jelena. Jelena's on Abbott Canyon, and I work at Juice, which is like our bakery. We're on Sunset and 3rd in Venice as well.
Okay.
The best. Is the proportion when you're doing other things, like say your blood orange, are you always going for about 400 grams of fruit and zest?
No, I'm not. So
or it depends on the kind of fruit?
It comes, so back to the apple stone fruit. So I had all these extra apples I needed to do something with. So I juiced them through a cold press. Beautiful. But when I started to make the shrub, there really wasn't enough of that apple flavor. So I had to reduce it. So that is one of our shrubs that is not raw anymore. So I reduced the apple juice down with the vinegar in it, down to a space where it came that you could get the flavor.
You had enough of the concentration.
You got enough of the apple.
So you've got to really play with it. So
Right. So I mean, but like other shrubs, like if you're making elderberry or rhubarb, those are things you have to cook.
Right.
So you have to cook those to make them edible. I prefer to make them raw, macerate them. The strawberry one has wild black currants I picked. So you can infuse it. I like to infuse it vinegar with something else and then incorporate macerated fruit to that. It gives it a bit more complexity. The guys out at Good Lion are serving the raw blood orange shrub in their cocktails that I make.
And what's
Good
the
stuff.
and what's
Did
the
everyone try their cocktails?
It's fantastic.
The cardamom?
The cardamon's fantastic.
Yeah, you guys just one quick one for you.
Get drunk.
Just use this general ratio. These are a little bit smaller than a normal portion size, but your general ratio is 1.5 ounces of gin, 2 ounces of shrub, 1/4 ounce of tart. That's it. And sparkling water next. Boom.
How much water?
So at the restaurant right now we have raw plum, raw blackberry. I have a mildly fermented raspberry lemon. We have cloudy apple stone fruit. We have blood orange, and we have apricot. So and all these things, there's different amounts. I tend to find that berry shrubs are a bit more expensive to produce because you need a bit more of them. Citruses are great because you get so much juice out of one piece of fruit. You get so much flavor out of just a few pieces of zest being soaked in vinegar. And the apple one obviously had to be reduced because it wasn't strong enough.
You have a happy hour, do I need a buddy for this?
I
I said, do you have a happy hour, do I need a buddy?
Well, we don't have alcohol, unfortunately.
What?
No, we don't. At the restaurant, at the restaurant we have beer.
But you can-
At Jelena, we just have beer and wine, though, we don't, so.
Can't we call somebody down, can't we call someone downtown?
You could probably call our council member.
Yeah, council member, call
Ask them
him.
if we can get
We're
it.
trying.
Yeah.
Get them on board.
Yeah.
Take a miss. They'll sign up.
We had to try to get chairs at that place.
We were all calling, yeah, they wouldn't let chairs.
And they provide parking, sorry. Yeah. They provide tremendous parking for the neighborhood. And it's honestly one of the few places that I feel like preserves a little bit
I
of
know
what
people make tomato shrubs
even
and
though
stuff
it's
like
getting
that.
filled with
You can infuse
but
Bloody
still,
Marys
the
with them. I
trust.
find
Yeah.
savory shrubs have to have alcohol.
How much soda water?
It's about 5 ounces. In this cocktail, there won't be 5 ounces. But
Yeah.
we serve at the restaurant 2 ounces of shrub, concentrate to 5 ounces of water over. You do have
So they have a liquor license at Jelena, but not at, I mean, at Justa, but not at Jelena, or is it the other one?
a couple months. It's just not,
Oh,
it's just
not at you.
shelf stable. And some of the cooked
Oh,
ones
okay.
have lasted. I've been surprisingly surprised how long they've lasted. And
So where do they serve these cocktails?
Now, another thing I do when I'm making these is I go through the entire process of adding fruit, the vinegar,
Oh,
incorporating
okay.
sugar. I actually tend to not try it that much the first day.